I felt betrayed. I felt used. At 14, I found out I was pregnant, and what I saw changed my life forever. My earliest memories were actually being at my grandparents' house. My grandpa's Winston Strength Lone Star, loved watching NASCAR. My grandma, she was very kind to me. One night, I remember that I didn't get to go back with my mom. My grandparents took me from my mother. My dad is just a name on a birth certificate. Eventually, when I was almost four or five, I went to stay with one of my aunts. She was married. She had another kid with him about my age. They were given legal guardianship of me, and I would say that life was good. We had pigs and chickens and dogs and a huge garden. I would wake up to the smell of bacon on the weekends, and my aunt instilled in me manners, respect for others. She taught me how to work hard for the things that I want, to take care of my responsibilities and to do things with excellence. So I lived with her from the time that I was 4 until I was 11 years old. Life was good. When I was a bit older, my aunt had gotten divorced. I started to pick up on some of the things that my aunt would say about me or about my mom. Kind of started making me feel like I was a burden to her. Because of that, I didn't have much supervision. I started acting out, and I was eventually abandoned once again. My aunt dropped me off at my mom's doorstep because she found out that I had stolen a pack of. I wasn't even smoking them. I was trying to impress the girl down the street. She was like 16, but my aunt made me pack a backpack full of clothes. She drove me to my mom's house and she dropped me off. She told me to my face that she wanted me to know what it felt like to be poor, that she wanted to teach me a lesson, and that maybe then I would be grateful for everything she's done for me. I was only 11. I went from eating 3 meals a day to wondering if I was going to eat it all. Inside this new home, mom and new stepdad, they were both doing. They were extremely violent with each other. My aunt didn't act like this. I had never even seen my aunt take a drink. So this was behavior I had never seen, and I didn't feel safe. So one night I got curious of what all the yelling and noise was coming from their bedroom, and I snuck and I watched from under the door, and what I saw changed my life forever, and it terrified me, and I ran away that night for the first time. I felt like nobody wanted me, nobody loved me, and I felt all alone. An older lady approached me a few hours after I left the house. She lived down the street. She knew my mom. They were sometimes friends. They would sometimes do together. She smoked with me that night for the very first time, and she encouraged me to go home, that I had her now. Over time, this woman built a relationship with me to the point that I called her mom number 2. She would wait for me at the bus stop. She would take me back to her house and make me sandwiches, and she eventually introduced me to older boys and other. I was at the first party that she took me to, and I later found out that she actually sold my virginity. I felt betrayed. I felt used, and everything seemed to just spiral out of control. She started encouraging me to run away then, and she would take me to houses and sell me to dealers or other men that she knew. There was a couple of times that she would send guys to my school to pick me up so that they could take me home with them and live out a sick fantasy. The money that she got from doing this, she used for her personal use, and then she eventually made me try it. At first, continued to go to school. I thought what was going on was normal. I would even brag about what I was doing to other students, and I quickly turned into the outcast because they all made fun of me. I was called every name in the book. I was in and out of juvenile detention constantly. My first charge was for terroristic threat because I told my stepdad in front of the police that I would in his sleep if he hit my mom again. I begged the police to arrest him, and they took me instead. I was only 12 at this time, and I was always told that I was the issue, that I needed to have better behavior, that I needed to just stay home and respect my parents, and stop making up stories. But that just added more reasons for me to leave, since it was apparently all my fault. Something I learned very, very fast is that nothing in life is free, especially for a runaway kid. I eventually stopped going to school, but it seemed like nobody noticed. I wanted my parents to love me and my brother more than they loved the. I wanted to sleep in a bed and not have to be woken up in the middle of the night to either my parents arguing or some strange man wanting me to have so that I had somewhere to sleep. And there was always something that I needed and I didn't have. And the only way that I could get those things by letting other people do horrible things to me behind closed doors. I eventually got away from this woman because one day she picked up this guy. As soon as he got in the car, he told her to drive out to a secluded place. And I was familiar with it. A lot of people go out there and do. And he handed me instantly. About 2 blocks later, we got pulled over. I was a known runaway at that time, so the police just took me back to the station and they started questioning me. He got in my face and he asked me, he said, "Ma'am, the reason I'm asking you how you know that man is because that man just got out of prison. He and a girl about my age that looked just like me and left her body exactly where we were going. They were watching him because he had just gotten out of parole." I never went back around her after that. So at 14, I found out I was pregnant and I tried to go back to school, and the school told me that I wasn't allowed to come back until after I had my son. Nobody asked any questions. I had nobody that cared, nowhere to go. I couldn't even finish my education. So I ended up telling a guy I barely knew that I had recently been with that he got me pregnant, and he believed me. He was in his early 30s. I was 14. I was desperate and just really in my adolescent mind was thinking I needed a safe place to live and be fed. This man made me clean a certain way, cook a certain way, perform acts for him multiple times a day. It was a very sick situation. Throughout my pregnancy, I was never asked questions of who I was staying with, how or where I was living. I went to doctor appointments alone. I was only 15. When I had my son, I was at the hospital alone. After I came home with my son, his parents, who paid all his bills, said that either I work or he does because they weren't going to pay for my child's diapers anymore. You could clearly tell by his skin color that that was not his child. He wouldn't work. I worked full time at 15 years old, and then I had to come home every day, cook, clean, take care of my son, please this man. And I endured this for about almost 4 or 5 years. And I left one day because I had some strong suspicions that he was abusing my son. I actually met my husband through this ugly process when my son was 4. Me and my husband, we ended up married after 5 years together. We had 2 more children together, and you would think that this is the happily ever after, but I never dealt with any of the trauma from my childhood. So by this time, I had 6 felonies on my record. I was 29 years old. I was a general manager for a restaurant. I had a teenager, a toddler, an infant, and my husband worked out of town. At the time, I developed an addiction to pain meds because of an emergency surgery. I was feeling extremely overwhelmed, and that's probably an understatement. And it seemed like the definitely wasn't helping the situation. So I did the one thing that I knew how to do very, very well, and I ran. Yes, I was selfish. I left my kids. I left my husband. I had this belief that I was going to find a better life, that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And looking back, my life wasn't bad. I was just a very hurt and traumatized person that had never received any healing. During this separation from my family, I got into a lot of bad situations. I even ended up robbing a well-known rapper in Baton Rouge, gold chains, guns. I had people looking to seriously hurt me, and somebody I knew that I thought I could trust told me one day, "Hey, I can introduce you to somebody that can help you out of this situation." It started out as what I thought was the beginning of a romantic relationship. He spent lots of money on me at first, bought me things I could never afford otherwise, and I perceived all of this attention as love and interest. And then one thing, everything changed. I pulled up at a hotel where he had a room, and he placed an ad on a known website. He named me Alexia, the Australian princess, on the ad. He used a blurred out face picture of a girl off of a site, and he told me I needed to dye my hair blonde. I tried to leave, but he stopped me and ended up convincing me that I only needed to do it just one time. After that first time, I got back into the car, and he gave me a quota of $1,500 a day. If I didn't meet that quota each day, there was punishment in the form of physical and sexual abuse. So he started coaching me to talk and act differently. He trained me how to respect him. He traveled me across different states from Louisiana to Colorado, and we stopped at every city in between. He broke my ribs one day by punching me in the chest as hard as he could because I shut a door without his permission. I would go through these breakdown periods where I would beg and cry him to just me because I didn't want to do this anymore. And he would do something to manipulate me, like tell me to pick out a car I wanted to buy. On the way back to Houston area, I threatened to drive the car off of the road a couple of different times to kill everybody in the car. It tore my heart out, and I realized in that moment that I needed to start finding my escape. A few days later, then I saw an opportunity, and I finally tried to run away from him. But I didn't get very far. I called my husband, and while I was telling him what was going on, I started getting messages of him telling me that if I didn't go back, he was going to take my daughter, who was 5 years old at the time, and do the same thing to her. So at this moment, I screenshot all of these messages and I sent them to my husband. And I basically told him goodbye because in my mind, this was the only way to protect my daughter. I didn't care what happened to me at that point. I didn't know, but my husband called the police. So when I went back, things got way worse. My quota went up to $2,500 a day. I had no freedom whatsoever. And mind you, during this whole time, I have untreated, crushed, broken ribs, and he refused to take me to the hospital. I was in excruciating pain, sitting in the bathtub because hot water seemed to soothe me, my broken ribs and other things that, were ailing me. I was on pain pills. This man had already taken everything from me, my wedding ring, everything. But I bought my husband this cross pendant for an anniversary present like years and years ago. I found this cross in my stuff, and I remember this one night, my daughter had a nightmare, and I put Daddy's cross around her neck, and I told her, "Baby, when God is with you, no evil can come against you." And I remember looking at the ceiling in that moment, and all I said was, "I can't take this anymore." I was recovered by law enforcement a few days later, walking out of this hotel. It took an officer literally getting in front of my face and asking me if I was Karla Solomon for me to realize that I was not Alexia. So at the hospital, they determined I had several broken ribs in several different places, multiple STDs, infections, and I told the police literally everything. I remember the officer was extremely encouraging. He gave me confidence that if I made it through what I had went through, that I could do anything. Now, 7 years later, I train state police right alongside him to other law enforcement agencies about interviewing. That's one of my biggest partnerships today. I would say my healing journey afterwards was probably harder than just surviving what I went through. When my husband actually overheard me planning my great escape, he turned me into the police for that old warrant, and I ended up went to prison for the second time. During the time that I was in prison, I read the Bible front to back in less than 6 months. But in reality, I went from one slavery like condition to another. So when my husband finally took me home, I hid in the house for almost a year. I had what was called agoraphobia, which was, it basically means the fear of the unknown. And I got completely sober, and I started to realize that what I had went through was something really bad. So by this time, my trafficker had bonded out of jail and was on the run by this time, facing hard charges for trafficking in persons. Things got kind of ugly for me before they got better. I couldn't handle all the memories that tormented me constantly, so I thought my only way out was going to be suicide. I tell everybody that was the day, October 4th of 2017, that I tried to throw in the towel, and God threw it in my face and told me, "No, ma'am, you've got work to do." The very next day, I left the house by myself for the first time. I got a job, and a few months later, I was asked to share my story for the first time. And soon after that, I helped formalize a ministry. My trafficker, who I knew as Fat, was finally arrested in Kentucky, and he was charged in Texas, and he took a plea offer in 2019 for a total of 60 years in prison. And I am grateful for each person that was involved in my recovery. So today, my oldest son is a full-time college student. My other two children, they obviously live at home with me. We are all heavily involved with church. My marriage and my relationship with my husband is probably the absolute best it's been in the entire, this year will be 20 years that we've been together. Today, I have an amazing relationship with my mom and my stepdad, even after all of the craziness. My mom is sober. She stopped taking. My stepdad still drinks. That hasn't changed, but his behavior has drastically. And he's no longer abusive towards my mom, which is a huge change. And that's why I allow them into my children's life. My biggest accomplishment is that I have now become a woman that would have protected me as a child. I work as a consultant for Mercy Gate Ministries. I work as a founding partner for Life Raft Incorporated. I have my own nonprofit, www.karlasolomon.com, which is where I offer consulting services, training services, and support services to survivors directly and to their families. I also have been accredited by the Texas Bar Association as an expert in human trafficking. So I actually train or have trained a lot of judicial officials. I'm a survivor consultant and subject matter expert for the Department of Homeland Security's Blue Campaign. I encourage survivors, don't be silent, don't suffer in silence. It doesn't matter if you reach out to somebody that you trust. It doesn't matter if you seek counseling. It doesn't matter if you hit your knees and pray, which probably is my best suggestion. But don't suffer alone. There are people that care, and there are people that can help you.